Self-trust isn't something that you either have or you don't. It's something that's actually built. Just like you would need to build trust with another person. Sometimes if you've just met somebody for the first time, or maybe it's a friend or someone you're in a relationship with who has maybe taken advantage of that trust or lost trust with you in some way, and that trust needs to be rebuilt. It works the exact same way when you're talking about trusting in yourself. A lot of times we lose trust in ourselves without even realizing that it's happened. But if you start to doubt yourself or you have low confidence, a lot of times that comes from not having trust in yourself. So if you're a person who maybe avoids doing things because you don't think that you'll ever finish it, or you don't believe in yourself, those are the kinds of things that really show that you have very low trust in yourself. So today we're going to talk about how to rebuild that. Now, before we jump into how to actually rebuild self trust, I also wanted to talk a little bit about what self trust is not. It's not about motivation, it's not about discipline. It's about making these small choices over and over again to get through the actions that you said you were going to take. So, if you just, for example, tell your friend that you're going to meet them for lunch at noon and you don't show up, or you show up an hour late, they're going, if you do that once, like, okay, it happens. But if it happens repeatedly, that's when they're going to feel like, you know what, you're not a good friend, you're not prioritizing our relationship, you can't be trusted to show up when you say you're going to, you can't be trusted to do the things that you say you're going to do. And it works the same way with self trust. If you don't follow through on the actions that you say you're going to do, then it's going to be really difficult for you to trust yourself. On the flip side of that, if you set out to build a new habit or do something and you say you're going to do it, the more that you do that thing, the more you're going to start to trust yourself. And it starts to branch out into all areas of your life, because you start to feel like, okay, well, if I was able to do this over here, then maybe I can also do that over there. You see what I mean? So it's really just about following through on those small actions, and just making the decision to do it. It's not about motivation or discipline. I've said many times in these videos that I am not always motivated to get up and run, but I've committed to doing it 3 times a week right now. And that's what I do. I stick to it no matter how I feel, no matter what's going on. The only exception would be like if I were to get sick, which luckily I haven't in a very long time. But you see what I'm saying? Like I'm committed to doing those things and I do them. And so it's built trust in myself. And I can start doing that in other areas too, where I see, okay, well, I've committed to running, I'm doing that. And now maybe I can commit to other things and stick it out and continue to do those actions. And it just continues to compound into that really strong self trust, which translates into confidence and all kinds of really amazing positive things that can really just like pop up in your life. But I think what's really key to remember here is that building trust in yourself is not going to come from thinking about it. It's not, if you're thinking about, all of the ways that you feel like you've let yourself down, or all of the ways that you can change, like, okay, yeah, you can think about it, but is that really going to change how you feel about yourself? No, probably not. But if you start actually taking action and doing those things, that's where the self trust is going to come from. So I just wanted to make that distinction, because it's not about your thinking, it's about the actions that you take. So the first tip I wanted to give is to start with smaller promises to yourself. You don't have to go in and overhaul everything at once, and you don't have to do something daily. If you decide that you want to be a runner, and I'm just using running as an example because it's something that's so like pervasive in my life right now, but this really can apply to anything. If you decide that you want to be a runner, you're not going to go out and try to run a marathon in your first week. That's just not how it works. And if you were to do that, you would definitely break that promise to yourself, unless you're like superhuman or something. And that would break trust in yourself. But if you can start small and maybe say, you know what, I've never really been a runner before, I'd really like to try it. I'm going to go out and I'm going to run 2 times this week. And then you set your schedule. Maybe you're going to run on like Tuesday and Thursday, and you're just going to see how well you do. You don't even set like a distance or anything. Maybe you just say, I'm going to go out and I'm going to run for 20 minutes twice a week. And that's a really good starting point because it's very small, it's very manageable, and that's really how you want to set yourself up for success, because eventually you can build on that, but you don't want to go like all out at first because it becomes overwhelming, and then you start to find reasons why you can't do it. Sometimes they're excuses, sometimes they're legitimate reasons. And especially with something like fitness, if you go all out too much too soon, you can injure yourself, you can get sick, you can have all kinds of issues. So that's not really something that you want to do. So again, number one, start small, start doing those small actions that you have committed to, and then you can build on it from there. And the really cool thing is, even just doing something a couple times a week really builds your confidence, builds that trust in yourself, because you said you were going to do it, you're doing it, and now you can add more. The second tip that I wanted to give you is to focus on consistency. Okay. I say this a lot, and you've probably seen some of my social media posts or in my writing or my other videos, that it's important to focus on consistency and not perfection. It's not always going to be perfect. You might go out for that first 20-minute run and you might feel great. And then you go out to do it the second day and maybe it rains, or maybe a big scary dog barks at you or something and you don't enjoy it as much. And that's okay because you still did it. But maybe one of the days the next week you get sick, or maybe your knee isn't feeling great or something. That's okay. You can still maybe go out and do a 20-minute walk instead of a run, or maybe you can change the day that you're running. I mean, there are lots of different options, but it's about being consistent, not perfect. There have been times where maybe I'm scheduled to run on a Monday and my schedule doesn't work out, or maybe my daughter misses the bus, or lots of things like that happen. And I mean, it's just life, it just comes up. So I will either run later in the day or I'll just switch it to another day. So you see what I mean? It's consistency, it doesn't have to be perfect. And you can track this however you want. You can keep a list if you want. You can, there are lots of like tracking apps, or you don't have to track it at all, but it's important to pay attention and just kind of see how you're progressing and how you are following through on that commitment. So the third tip that I would give you is to redefine what success looks like to you. It doesn't have to be about the outcome, it can be about the action. So if you're following through, you're doing the things that you said you were going to do, then that's success. If you are going into, let's say, running again, if you're going into that thinking that you're going to run a certain pace, or you're going to be able to go a certain distance, or that you're going to be able to win your first 5K, that may not be realistic. And that might start to like deplete your trust in yourself, because you're setting these like really huge, unattainable goals and you're not reaching them. The action goals you can actually attain because you have total control over that, right? So if you set out to run 2 or 3 times a week and you do that, then that's where you're going to start to build confidence and you're going to start to really trust yourself. And you can work towards those bigger goals, but you just need to understand that it's going to take time and it's going to take that consistency of action to get you there. The next tip I would give you is to stop using your past as evidence against yourself. So what I mean by that is, if you find yourself saying, I've tried that before and it didn't work, or I've never been able to do da 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 da, um, don't do that to yourself, because just because you weren't able to do it before doesn't mean that you can't do it now. There could be so many different factors involved. You may have a different mindset now. Your circumstances might have changed. Most of the time, it's that you didn't have the right system in place. So it's sometimes just about like figuring out what system will work best for you. So a system would be like that set of action goals that I talk about all the time. Maybe in the past set too lofty a goal, or you said, you know what, I'm going to go out and I'm going to run every day. And then something came up, you weren't able to do it, and you ended up giving up because you felt like you couldn't do it. So you want to reframe that. Don't do that to yourself. Don't count yourself out. I've seen so many people who have said, I can't do this because I've never been able to do it. Well, that doesn't mean anything. I ran 5K last month or the month before, my fastest I've ever run in a time I never thought that I could. And if I had just told myself over and over again, you know what, I've never been able to run that fast, why would I even try? You know what I mean? So it's really important to let go of the past. Your past does not have to dictate your future, and just focus on doing those actions, and that's really where you're going to build that self trust, and you can prove yourself wrong, which is really an amazing feeling. The fifth and final tip that I wanted to give you is that you want to build proof through action, not thinking. Because a lot of times when you're thinking, you start thinking about your past, which is, I just talked about that. You don't want to use your past against yourself. So build it through action, commit to those actions and those habits that you want to build, and follow through on them. That is where you're going to build that trust in yourself. It's not going to be from thinking. And it's also important to note that even small actions are going to build that proof. So even if, say you have that goal of running, 20 minutes twice a week for a while, you do that for a while, but then maybe something comes up. Maybe you only run 10 minutes, or maybe you get caught in a rainstorm, or you twist your ankle, or something happens. But so you only got like 10 minutes in, but that's okay because you still went out there, you still did it. And then maybe you make up for it later. Maybe you add an extra day the next week. There are lots of different ways that you can overcome that. But it's really important to remember that it doesn't have to be perfect. 10 minutes is better than nothing. It's more than you were doing before, and you just move forward. You just you learn from it. Sometimes it's an issue with the system that you have. Sometimes maybe it's an issue with scheduling, or other things that come up, and that's okay. We tweak as we go. We learn from our mistakes, but we keep moving forward, and that's where you're going to start to really feel that trust in yourself. Now, I wanted to give you a few examples from my life that hopefully, you can relate to in some way, shape, or form. I know not everybody who watches my videos is a runner, but again, it's a big part of my life. I do talk about it a lot, and haven't always been a consistent runner. I've told the story before, but I started when my daughter was about 6 months old. I wanted to lose the baby weight, and I started doing races. I started doing Run Disney races, really enjoyed it, but it was sort of something that I fell in and out of. I would run for a while, and then I would stop, and then I would come back to it. And I just most recently came back to it at the end of last summer. So still been under a year. And I'm just really enjoying it. I built a system that has really propelled me forward. I run 3 times a week. Each session is different. So I do a speed training session, I do an easy run, and then I do a long run to build endurance. And I've been doing that for months and months and months now. And so there's not even a thought to it now. I just, I know what my running days are. Sometimes I shift them a little bit because of my schedule, or because of, other things that might be going on. And so I will sometimes not run on my normal run days, but that's okay because I'm able to shift it around. So that's one example. Another that I've talked about before was my decision to stop drinking alcohol. That was one that I had tried many times and failed. And I did sort of feel like, oh, I don't know if I can really do this, but I'm going to commit to it for a month. And I did that. I committed for 30 days. I felt amazing. I was so glad that I had done it. And I just kept going with it. And as I built that proof, on the days or times when I felt a little bit uneasy about it, or like maybe we were going out to dinner to a place that had like a favorite drink of mine or a wine that I really liked, I would remind myself, you know what, you've been doing this for a long time, and you can keep doing it no matter what the circumstances are. And that has propelled me forward. Again, that has come from self trust. And then, another example would be building this brand. I have always sort of struggled with consistency. I've had other businesses before that required me to post on social media, to write blog posts, things like that. And I get burnt out after a while. I start to feel like, I used to tell people, like, I'm just sick of myself. I'm sick of listening to my own voice. I'm sick of, looking at my face, on Instagram or whatever. And when I first started this, I really wanted to do it, but I also was like, I mean, I'm not always the best. But I built a system. I don't have to do it all at once. I have a day for planning, I have a day for filming, and then I have all of my posts and, all these different activities of posting to YouTube and posting to TikTok and writing my essay. They're all planned out and it's much more manageable. And the more that I've done it, the more manageable it has become because I know that I can do it. I've done it through weeks that were really crazy. We had family here a couple weeks ago. We were traveling a few weeks before that, and I was still able to work that in. So if there's a day where maybe I don't feel like filming, or I feel sick of myself and I don't want to post something, I remind myself that I've already done it in much more difficult circumstances. So that has helped me to keep doing this. And I do it because I enjoy it. And I do it because I'm hoping that I can be helpful to other women who are in the same stage of life that I'm in. And, we're all in this together. And this is just sort of my little way of giving back as much as I can. I'm no expert, but I know I am somebody who does really trust myself, who does follow through on what she says. And I want to be able to help other people to do the same because it really does feel good to be able to say that. Now, the reason that this matters in midlife is because this is the time where we start wondering what's next. If you have kids and they're getting older, you start thinking about, they're going to be out of the house soon. What am I going to do? What is my life going to look like? And a lot of times it's where we start looking at maybe trying something new, or doing something new and expanding our horizons, and maybe taking better care of our health. But you're not going to do that if you don't trust yourself. You have to have a certain level of self trust to attempt something new, to build something new for yourself. And this can affect your health, it can affect your career, and it can really just affect your overall well-being, your relationships, your friendships, your marriage. Like, there are so many different aspects of your life that are going to be affected by the trust that you have in yourself. So it is really important at this stage of the game to build that self trust. And the nice thing is that it goes hand in hand with building something new for yourself, because as you create that action plan and you work on those action goals and you actually take those actions, you're building self trust, but you're also building whatever that thing is that you're working towards. So your really simple starting plan is just to pick one thing and do it. That's all. Really. Pick one thing, pick one action, set up a schedule for yourself and follow it. And make sure that you're being flexible, because if you're inflexible, that's where you set yourself up for failure. Because if you, again, say that you're going to run twice a week and you miss one of those days, and you start to feel like a failure, or like, oh, I didn't say what I was going to, instead of seeing that there are other solutions, you could do 10 minutes instead of 20. You could run the next day. You could, if you only get one session in one week, do three the next week. Like, there are lots of different ways to do that, but you need to be flexible. It's really key in this whole thing. So you just want to pick one thing, do it consistently, track it in some way, even if it's just mentally making a note of it. But I do find that it does help to write things down. I have, for my running, I have a like a plan that I had mapped out, and I just keep adding to it. So I can see all of the runs that I've done since I started running back in the early fall last year. So it's kind of cool to do that and see, like, oh my gosh, I've been doing this for so many months and look how far I've come. And, I was only running at this pace, or I was only doing this many miles, and look at how far I've come and what I'm doing now. So tracking can be a really great tool, but it's not absolutely necessary. The most important thing is to choose an action, do it consistently, and you can let that be enough for now. So, to wrap this up, again, you do not need to overhaul your whole life. All you have to do is be consistent with small actions. That's really all it takes to build self trust. And as you build self trust, you're going to become more confident. You're going to feel like you can do more, and you're not going to put those limitations on yourself that I think a lot of us have been doing for years. If this resonated with you, please make sure that you're following this channel, or leave a comment down below so I can hear, how this affected you, what your thoughts are. I always love to hear those those types of things and that type of feedback. But definitely make sure you're following this channel because I do post a lot about action goals, building self trust, building confidence. And I really hope that that's helpful for you.